breaking. Take a look at this. Just breaking, this coming into us today. This video of people trying to get through, trying to make their way towards the border. Okay, so Mariara is in central Venezuela, and they need to get to the border towards Colombia in order to get the humanitarian aid, which means the medicine that many of these people need, and the food that so many of them need. And Nicolas Maduro has sent his military out to block them. Meanwhile, tonight, a major player in the Maduro regime is announcing his support for Juan Guaido, the opposition, and new elections. Most important here, he's willing to spill the beans and name some names, admitting that both Hugo Chavez and Nicolas Maduro courted drug traffickers and, alarmingly, Hezbollah. I've reported on the connection to Latin America with Hezbollah as far back as 13 years ago, when I uncovered some banking records in the lawless no man's land known as the tri-border town of Ciudad del Este, Paraguay. It was from this wild and lawless place that the terror attacks on a Jewish community center and the Israeli embassy happened in Argentina in the 1990s. Now, the bank records I uncovered showed massive amounts of money being transferred from that tri-border region in Latin America to Hezbollah, $100 million. And at that time, it was the largest source of funding for Hezbollah outside of Iran. Well, today, in all of Latin America, which includes Venezuela, that number has quadrupled to at least $400 million. More than a decade ago, I began hearing of Venezuela's connection to Hezbollah because anytime you have a criminal regime in charge, you run the risk of bringing in the bad guys, more bad guys, right? Drug runners and terrorists. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo confirming Hezbollah's presence there in Venezuela to me just recently. And tonight, we are learning from the man who ran Venezuela's intelligence division for more than a decade, probably no saint himself, that the same news is true, that Venezuela is a place where Hezbollah is active and hiding out in and could launch logistical operations from. So it seems to me Venezuela is most definitely a country we need to be focusing on. We don't want Hezbollah in our backyard. We don't want terrorists in our backyard. We don't want Russia, China, Iran, Cuba, drug traffickers there, so close to us, right? Here now to react to all of it, presidential historian Doug Weed. Doug, it is very good to see you because there's a part of history called the Monroe Doctrine, and I want you to walk us through that because I think they almost knew way back when that we could have problems like what we're seeing today.
Yeah, very, very true. And Trish, thank you for the leadership you're providing in this whole issue. It's remarkable how myopic the American media is. I mean, we cover a fire in California or a snowstorm in New England, but the life and death struggles around the world we often miss. But this is a big one. The Monroe Doctrine was developed by John Quincy Adams, who was Secretary of State to President James Monroe, and it basically said to the kingdoms of the world, the empires of the world, hands off the Western Hemisphere. And it announced to the emerging countries of Latin America and the Western Hemisphere, we'll protect you. The United States will protect you. And all through the years, it's been invoked in crises like this. It was invoked in the Spanish-American War. Reagan invoked it when he invaded Grenada, and George H.W. Bush when he invaded Panama. It says hands off the Western Hemisphere, whether it's Hezbollah or whoever, Russia with their Tu-160s, whatever it may be.
Yet, you know, you've got Vladimir Putin seemingly trying to call our bluff on this, or what he thinks might be bluff, which I know is not, because I know how much the administration cares about this. I mean, you've got Vice President Mike Pence heading to Bogota. I'll be there as well on Monday to interview him, but he's sitting down with Latin American leaders, including the president of Colombia, to talk about strategically how the region is able to protect the people of Venezuela. So this is one that the administration cares about and has been very vocal on, including the president himself, even in the State of the Union. So knowing all that, why is Vladimir Putin out there saying, you know, he's fine with another, you know, repeat of the Cuban Missile Crisis all over again? That was today.
Yeah, that's pretty scary. I mean, these Tu-160s fly twice the speed of sound. They carry nuclear weapons. It's very dangerous. I was with the president recently and was interrupted with a phone call from Argentina. He's very involved in Latin America, more than any president has been recently, and you can see why it has to be. The puzzle to a lot of people, Trish, is why won't Maduro go? If he's got billions, if he's got beaches for the rest of his life, and these dictators won't go because power is addictive. Abraham Lincoln once said that a man can handle adversity easily, but if you want to test his character, give him power. And that's why we celebrate George Washington. He walked away from power. That's the American way. We don't understand these dictators who hang on to it, even when their people are seeking for help, and vote them out of office.
Yeah, I keep saying this. It's all in the name of socialism, right? He's supposed to be helping the people. He wants to make sure that people have basic needs taken care of. But socialism, I believe, fundamentally as an economic system, simply does not work, and it is not sustainable. And at some point, you run the risk, especially in some of these places like Venezuela, of getting a lot of corruption in there. And you got a guy who's hanging on for dear life. He won't go, but yet his people are starving in the streets, and 1 million people, Doug, are expected to try and cross that border into Colombia just for some food, just for some medicine.
This is reaching a climax, and it could be very dangerous, and it could go wrong, and we need to be supportive.
What do you mean it could go wrong?
Well, I was talking about how power is addictive. Maduro, you know, he's got his people in position. Not all of them have gone over to the other side, and he could have his troops open fire. It could be very ugly. It could be very dangerous.
Well, you know, then he's really inviting a lot of big problems. But, you know,
I wouldn't tempt Donald Trump
no,
if I were
I
he.
wouldn't. No, he cares. He does. And he keeps saying all options are on the table. And as I said, Mike Pence is there in Bogota, in Colombia on Monday at the Lima Group, talking to all the leaders of Latin America, because no one down there outside of, you know, Cuba likes Maduro. Doug, it's good to see you. Thank you.